guys. Welcome back to another episode of Balanced and Bougie. Today, we have a super exciting conversation for you. I have someone very special in my life here to talk to you guys today. Her name is Julie Reisler. I got to know Julie over the past year when I took her life designer coaching certification course. And before that, I was a huge fan of her podcast. So Julie is in the world of like personal development, spiritual development, professional. She was a coach, really turned kind of like life designer, spiritual, getting to know the youest you. She's an author. She has an active podcast. And she's just a really cool lady who I've learned a lot from. And today we're going to talk about something that was a really core piece of the coaching program that I went to, and one of the reasons why I chose it, which is intuition. Julie teaches a lot about like intuition overall. What does it look like for you? What are the different ways we can listen to it, discern what it's trying to tell us? So yeah, she's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so happy to have her here today. So thanks again for your time, Julie.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait. This is one of my favorite topics and thrilled that you asked me and so excited to get started.
Awesome. Yes, I gave a little overview, but I always feel like I kind of maybe miss something. So, like, tell us a little bit about your background with intuition, spirituality, and kind of how you got the expertise and the wisdom that you have today.
Yeah, so I will do my best to kind of do this in as a concise way as possible. For me, I really come by this work very naturally. I've shared this before, I'm very open about it. I struggled years ago with addiction, specifically actually around food and just not knowing how to deal with and express and be with emotions. And, the emotions, not like emotions when you feel good and happy, but the emotions that we often don't want to have. I did a lot of deep dive work on myself with support groups, therapists, healers. And then I actually found this program and I had a coach that this was about 16 years ago, 15 years ago. It changed my life. I had done so much inner work. In fact, the book I wrote, Get a PhD in You, comes from this deep dive, this excavation of myself. And I worked with this coach and it was like everything shifted. My entire perception of myself, my life, so much so, I mean, it was a bit of a dark night of the soul because I
Mm.
really I saw where I was in alignment and out of alignment. And, that was not an easy time. I was married at the time with two really young children, working full time, just felt like I liked what I was doing, but I didn't love it. And if I had known what I know now, which is why I teach this, my intuition had been giving me signals and signs the whole time. And I shoved them down. And I personally shoved them down with food, with
Mhm.
boxes and bags of things that were sweet or salty, and just shoved them under the rug. I was a people pleaser extraordinaire. I really could have, my book, right, Get a PhD in You, I could have like gotten a PhD in people pleasing. I was
Yeah.
excellent at it. And probably like you and others, as a high empath, I can feel people and their energy and I'm highly sensitive. I got really good at kind of becoming whoever I needed to be. I didn't realize I was doing this consciously, but that chameleon kind of shifting around to be
Mhm.
liked, to be accepted, whatever it was, it just, what happens is when you do that, for me, I lost sense of myself. So when I worked with this coach, as I was doing all of this support group work and realized, oh my gosh, I am not in alignment here. That led to a major shift. I mean, it looked like ending a marriage. It looked like going back to school, getting a master's degree in health and wellness coaching and mindfulness in, mind body science. I was so lucky. I had incredible professors and teachers and classes. And then eventually leaving my corporate day job as a single mom to start a business. Like, I had no entrepreneurial background. I just was in love with this coaching work. And I thought, well, as I was coaching others in my program and seeing literal transformations and experiencing it myself, I thought, this is powerful stuff. Like
Mhm.
this works. So I'm somebody, I had a health crisis and breakdown that has been one of the biggest gifts. I changed my entire lifestyle around not just food, nourishment in the body, of the mind, of the spirit. And now 10 years later, I've had my business for over a decade, and intuition has been the greatest guide, my greatest strength, asset, and source. And I do believe it is divinely given. It is part of all of us. It's just about learning how to listen, hear, connect to it, to trust it, to follow it. And, everything I teach and do, it comes from my own experience, either of major breakdowns to breakthroughs. And for me, I'm just on that team, probably like you and others here. I really feel strongly that we can have a world with human beings that are living in our heart and
Mhm.
have a high consciousness and high integrity and elevated, level of care and compassion. And so, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect, but for me, every day that inspires me to think and look at, all right, what can I do to make a positive impact here? And what's my part?
Absolutely. Yeah, years ago when I had the opportunity to work with a coach, she went through a program too that there was a spiritual component. And so she taught me a lot about, she didn't call it intuition at the time, but it was the first time that someone was really helping me get tools to, I always describe like let the real Brooke out of the box, because she was just like banging on the cage doors, like this people pleaser, same thing, like the roles that my family and life situations were putting on me. I was like, it wasn't me, and it was bubbling up. And when that finally came through, it was so empowering. So ever since that moment, I was like, I really want to help people feel that too, especially women, especially young women, because I feel like oftentimes we take on the roles we feel we have to around us. And so that's why it was so natural to go into your program, Julie, because listening to your podcast, I knew that was an important piece of it. But also when I got to meet you at your open house and like talking about you and just hearing just how genuine you are and how much you use this not only in your business but in your day to day. Yeah, it was a game changer. But you're right, it's not,
Mm,
you kind of talked about like a dark night of the soul. It's not easy, right? Like there's always a little bit of like a realization that hits, or you put that mirror up in front of yourself and sometimes it's really hard what you see, but it makes
yes.
a difference to dive in.
I think the piece that thank you for what you said. I remember meeting you and I was like, I love her. She's got to be in this program. Like it's got to happen.
There's a line for
It's
sure.
something. Yeah, I was like, okay, I could see it, Brooke. I was like, yes, you have all the ingredients to be a powerful coach. With the challenges that come with it, it doesn't have to be hard sometimes when we listen to our intuition, but I think getting that we do live in a world of duality of,
Mhm.
you look at nature. I think nature is our best teacher. I I mean, I don't know what it's like to go through the cocoon thing, the metamorphosis, but I do not think that can't be like a fun joyride. Like you become primordial soup and then something. So there's got to be, it's like, what is it? Diamonds are created under pressure. There's got to
Mhm.
be some kind of pressure. Like you said, your coach was like, shaking the cage, like what's going on here, and trying to
Yeah,
help you. And so often we don't really listen until there's something that's getting our attention. That's what I've noticed.
totally. And like you said, it can sometimes be health, it's external circumstances. Brene Brown sometimes even talks about her, like, I love, she says it's like a mental breakdown, and then she crosses it out and writes spiritual awakening. Like something just knocks you out in some way. And
Yeah.
hopefully you don't have to get to that point, which is actually one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you today, too, because like you said, it doesn't always have to be hard or negative to kind of get to the space of starting to listen to yourself. And I really like one thing that I think maybe we could start in is you have a tool that you help people determine the ways that they might hear their intuition. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
One of the ways to assess your intuition, a really simple way. I teach this in the coaching program. I use this daily. First of all, to understand, of course, everyone I'm sure knows we're all made of energy. Everything is made of energy. Our bodies, even though it looks quite solid, it is intense amounts of energy vibrating. And our bodies hold cellular knowledge and wisdom. There's so much more complexity in the most beautiful way. Um, and really getting that, often what can happen is our head comes online, our mind, our fears, our doubts, our ego, whatever you call it, and it can really start to cloud judgment. It can cloud hearing and sensing intuition. So, and we can get into this in a little bit if you're interested, Brooke. Like, how do you tell the difference between
Yeah.
intuition versus your head, your logic, your fear? We can go into that if you want.
I
But what
need
I'll
that right now,
say,
so I'm sure everyone
okay,
does.
yeah, we'll go into that. I can
Yeah,
come back to that. But in
okay.
terms of just getting that your body is, this like incredibly intelligent, very adaptable, just wise instrument that knows what is for your highest good at a level that is beyond what we can understand. And now, for those who've ever done any kind of research or reading about heart intelligence, it's a real thing. There's scientific evidence, lots of it, around intuition in your heart intelligence, and we have an electromagnetic field that's like 10 times the area around our heart. Horses also have this, and that's why there's a lot around equine therapy. They can feel our presence, but we can pick up energy and information in the field around us through our heart. So two things that you can do. One would be to put your hand on your heart, to take a few deep breaths, to connect in, and to ask your heart to literally say, if there's a question, is this in my highest good? Is taking this
Mm,
course in my highest good? Is dating this person? Is going on this flight in my highest good? Is this something that's aligned? And what if you start to practice that, you're going to start to either hear like a yes, a no. You'll start to feel a sensation. It might be leaning in or leaning away. You might start to get an image. We're all different, but I'm telling you, your heart will give you that information. It's called heart intelligence. The Heart Math Institute has thousands of articles about this, so much research. They have a lot of free videos and information. So heart intelligence is a real thing. We can tune in that way. The other is to get still, to stand, and to just ask yourself the question and notice. Most human beings, when we want something, when we're excited about something, we lean forward, we
mm.
lean into it versus leaning away. And you can ask yourself and notice your body, notice your mind, notice where you're moving. It's a really powerful way to assess your intuition.
That's huge. I know we got to learn a little bit about that in coaching, and it was a really neat tool to, just like you said, for it can be quicker decisions. And I know we even talked about practicing, right? Like choosing something that you're like, okay, maybe this doesn't feel like life or death, or I don't feel like kind of choked by the thought of it. So start practicing there and kind of build this up. Like I actually, when I met you for the first time and did that open house, I remember like you pointed out that I got really close to the camera. Like I was leaning in because I was getting really excited, and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And then we went on to talk about that more, and like sure enough, it's yeah, that's a practice that I try to remember to use because it's really helpful, and it's so simple too. It's almost so simple that we like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, is this working? But it definitely
Yeah.
does because like you said, the body knows.
The body knows. I mean, a great book, forgetting the author, but The Body Keeps the Score. I mean, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of science about this. Our body, our cellular knowledge. Unfortunately, today, I don't know that this is taught in elementary school. I hope someday these kinds of tools are. They should be. These really are like our birthright to know how we work. There's so much more to us than our logic and our thinking mind. And we have access. And this is what I love. The reason I love teaching about this, talking about this, is it's free. It's like you're built with it. It's like batteries included. We're all born of the same divine stuff. We all have it. It's just if you don't use it, it's not that you lose it, but you do lose that connection to it. You can rebuild it, you can regain it, you can
Mhm.
connect into it at any time, but it can take a little practice because for most of us, we weren't taught, okay, ask your body, notice how you're feeling. Are you moving forward? I use it now for every decision I make, every decision.
It really does. It reminds me of those things that we lose from our childhood, right? Like so many times kids, like they know what they want. They know what they feel. Even I was listening to something the other day that talks about like truly feeling emotions. Like when you're a child, like and you feel it and it processes through you, then you're not holding on to it. When we're adults, we let things stick with us and we let, like you said, like the shoulds or the different voices of people become our own inner dialogue. And it really kind of mucks up the system, right? Of like getting that guidance. It's still there, but it sometimes takes some digging.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. I'm so curious to go back to that topic. Okay, so I
Yeah.
again, guys, I took Julie's coaching program. I practiced this, but even I, as soon as things started to get busy, I realized if I'm not practicing it, I'm slowly losing it. So tell us this kind of the difference between the logical, like where is your head leaning versus where when your heart is leading you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, it's actually, I think one of the reasons that I was kind of guided to start this new membership that's going to be all about really learning these tools and practicing because
Mm,
we all need it. I need it as well. Like really being reminded it's not something that is yet infused into our society. I don't think most companies, organizations teach you to trust your intuition, how to listen to it. I'm doing it in what I'm in my business, but it's not typically most companies and bigger companies. So
mhm,
someday, maybe someday, hopefully, in terms of deciphering, decoding, right there, here's the thing there, we have, I believe it's around 70,000 thoughts a day. Many of those thoughts are throwaway thoughts. Many of them are fear based. Not all of them. I'm sure some of them are gratitude and excitement and joy and, all different emotions and all different thoughts. And of course, thoughts often lead to how we're feeling and sensing. So, how do you tell the difference? What I can tell you is with intuition, you may not always love what it's saying after you process it. However, it will always have a softness and a deep
mm,
truth to it. It's never going to scream at you. It is never going to yell at you. It is never going to berate you or judge you. None of that. So, if you're getting any kind of inner knowing or thought that feels judgmental, fear based, attacking, anything in that realm, you can be sure that that is coming from your ego. Ego meaning fear, doubt, right? Judgment. That part of us that wants to protect us. We all have it. We need it. I could go into more depth around the part of the brain that has that. There's a whole science behind that, which is so cool. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who's a dear friend, goes into that in her Whole Brain Living book.
I love that
We have,
book. I
I
gotta link
love
that book. I read it because I read it at the library, and if I like it, I buy it, and I bought it like super fast. I read it. Oh my gosh, it was so good.
It's so good. It's our left brain emotional tissue. So this,
Mhm,
our ego, our younger kind of 4 or 5 year olds self, that aspect of ourself that is here to protect us, you know, oftentimes those thoughts can be disguised in our own voice and they sound very convincing. So, if you're getting that inner, hearing that inner voice in a way that sounds like it's condemning or judging or fear based, that is not your intuition. Now, intuition, it will sound clear, often very simple, very quiet sounding and truthful, aligned.
mhm,
There's like a gentle, calm knowing, very different energy. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always easy to process. So, for me, when I had a literal wake up call. This was at 3:33 in the morning. I guess 16 years ago, 2008. My son was about 6 months old, and I just I woke up and I heard my inner voice, my inner guidance say, "You are not okay here." And it was very upsetting, but the voice itself was very calm. And it was
Mhm.
just it was a very calm, truthful, "You're not okay here." There was nothing attached to it, no condemning, no judging. Now, then I had to sit with it and look at, like, what the heck do I do about that? What does that mean? And I realized, oh, I have not been living in this way of really aligning. When you're people pleasing, you're trying to be who other people want you to be. So,
Yeah.
not faulting my former husband or anybody else, I created that experience. But I realized to fully be my meest me, it meant, not being in that marriage. It meant going back to school. It meant leaving a corporate job and starting my own business. It meant, I had a health breakdown soon after that. It meant changing my entire lifestyle. And I realized it was guidance to listen to. It wasn't easy, but there was no fear around it. It was just a
Mhm.
quiet, confident knowing.
That's such a helpful tip because sometimes I know when I think of intuition, I'm just really hoping it's the exact answer or wording that I'm going to be like, yep, that's it. And it's just going to flood over me. I want it to be this big thing. And the times that I truly think I've experienced like an intuitive answer in a moment, you're totally right that it is very soft. There have been times where like I've even been, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but I was like, okay. I just remember just kind of dropping a little bit because I was like, yep. But it was peaceful because it almost helped the rumination stop. But I remember at the time it was just like there was nothing. It was pretty much just a message of accept that not right now. And I'm like, so it is. Sometimes there's maybe grappling with what that will look like, but I love that you were able to kind of verify that it's that peaceful. Yeah, there's not judgment, there's not.
No.
I guess I wanted to get your thoughts though, because as you were saying that, I'm like, okay, one thing that I personally struggle with is I want everything to happen like tomorrow. And I know they say, you know, people of my generation do, stuff like that. But I also just think, I'm like, well, I've been working and I will work. I'll put in the steps. Like I'm here, I'm ready to show up. Why is it not in my hand right now? And sometimes when I've tried to get in touch with my intuition, I'm always like, is it always like a message to slow down? Or is there ever, in your experience, an urgency to it, even though it's not
Yeah.
necessarily fear based or it won't scare you? Kind of balancing urgency in a peaceful kind of message, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a great example. And I think what
Mm,
you're saying, remembering, I like to think of it as, I mean, we all have access, whether you call it your higher self, the divine, God, spirit guides, the field, maybe all of it, that we have this access to higher intelligence, to greater guidance. And, as human beings, sometimes it's like just remembering, this aspect of guidance is loving. It's never judging.
mm,
However, it doesn't mean that there won't be a emphatic message. I'll tell you, so what happened, and this is a great question, and with my coaching program, right? So I'll just share really openly. I've been teaching core competencies coaching for years, almost over 10 years now. And I taught at where I got my degree, brick and mortar school. And then I've been teaching at Georgetown University almost for 10 years in their coaching program. I've loved it. It's something I've done on the side. I mean, I love this work. I think it's a healing work. And really did not think about starting my own. It was not on my radar. It wasn't like I'm going to do my own certification. I never really had that thought before. And
mm,
then we had 2020 and a lot of things changed with the pandemic and so much obviously pivoted and closed down and shifted. And I woke up, I think probably end of March. So we were probably a week or a couple weeks in. And I woke up and I heard, you need to start a coaching certification. I heard that. And I
wow.
am now, I've done a lot of work around connecting to my intuition. I know when I hear I knew, I was like, okay, that is different energy. It was calm, it was quiet. And there was a sense of now. It was
Yeah.
now. You need to do this. It wasn't like you need to, it was, you need to do this now. And it still felt like there was a choice, but I could feel oh, wow. Okay. It felt like a marching order in a very loving way. Like, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
start this now. And I thought, okay, what do I do? Like, I don't know. And then I realized I had a woman, a dear friend who was working with me at the time. And I just said, can you just help me kind of gather my thoughts? And then 3 hours later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I have so much information and so much to teach. Like, I hadn't even really processed or realized all of these years of teaching and coaching. And then the sacred coach approach came out in those 3 hours. I mean, it just flew
Oh,
out.
wow.
I
Yeah.
didn't even, I mean, it was just, it wasn't something I pondered for too long. It literally felt like it was channeled through me. And the whole program, I ended up spending time recording it and writing it out more than those 3 hours. But in that 3 hour session with her, I was like, can you just mirror back and listen? I'm going to take notes on what I'm saying. The whole thing revealed itself. And that felt to me really intuitively guided, that whole program. The day before, I hadn't thought I was going to do that. So it can have an emphatic, do this now, take this turn here. I've had that before.
Mm-hmm.
Take a right now. And I'm like, what is going on? That's not what my GPS is saying. Yeah, but divine GPS is on a different track than the car, GPS.
Yes.
So it can be do this now. Now we get to choose. We have free will. This is important. And this is what this is what I learned is I have free will. And if I choose to stay in people pleaser, like being who you want me to be, I could do that all day long. I probably will recreate what I did before, which and will miss really the gifts of tuning into my intuition and my greater purpose. I'll just squash them. Right. So you have a choice. You don't and there's no I really don't believe there's any aspect of our guides or higher guidance, love, God, judging it all. I don't think there's anything like that. It's just you're going to experience the either way if you listen or you don't. I finally saw enough evidence of not listening to my intuition and pushing it away where I just made a decision. I am not doing that anymore. So I actually every morning I literally say out loud, I am turning my will over to that of the divine. I am choosing
Mm.
to. Please continue to send me signs and messages and help guide me because I don't want to get in my own way. And I don't want the little J, little Julie to get in the way of my higher purpose. So that's a lot of different thoughts, but I'll pause for a moment.
It was so helpful. And of course, I have like a million questions and ways we could go. But I guess one thing that keeps coming to mind is, again, I've listened to your podcast for years. I've gotten to know you in this teaching a little bit, but I'm almost feeling like we need to take a step back for the girl or the listener, the guy whoever it is, who's like, okay, I feel like I'm grasping this. I feel like maybe I've experienced this, but maybe there's a little bit of, again, this lack of confidence or, this understanding. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's a calm feeling. Sometimes you hear it, sometimes you feel it. Is there something to that? And I guess it's been such a long time, I think, since you were back to this point, but like someone who is really kind of dipping their toes in to understand where is a place to start to begin. I don't think we're ever going to wrap our head around it completely, but
Yeah.
to really kind of like bite size get into practicing connecting with this.
Yeah. I think the most important thing, even before that, it's a great question, Brooke. The first thing I would recommend doing I always recommend and is very helpful is to actually look into the past, which I don't do a lot of, but in this case, I think it's powerful. Look at your past history. Try to recall as many times as you can when you got a gut feeling, a
Mm.
nudge, an intuitive, connected knowing and either you followed it or you didn't. And it could be anything. It could be, oh, wow, that date, I had no reason to meet with him, but I just felt it. And oh my God, we're together now. Like, or it could be, I had that sense I shouldn't have gone down that road, and then that's when that accident happened. It could be anything.
Mhm.
Don't judge it, get curious. I would do a little bit of research, because what you want to first do is really kind of prove to yourself we still have an active left brain. And for many of us, it's really helpful to just see, and this is what I did. And when I saw it, it was like, holy crap. Oh my God. Oh my God. I did get that sense. I did hear that, in college. I did hear that voice, and I did this instead. And when I
Mm.
followed it, like, I started to look at it and write down and track it. And it was undeniable. Undeniable. And we all have. If I ask someone right now, like, have you ever had a gut feeling? Have you ever gotten chills or goosebumps? Have you ever just known something you have no idea why? Every human being. I mean, I've asked this, I've done this with the military, I've done this with government, with companies. I've, taught little aspects of this. And there's not one person who has said, no, I've never had a gut feeling or
Mm.
an intuitive sense. Even if it's a baby one, even if it's, I couldn't explain it, but I just knew to walk into that store at that time. And as a result, I got a job there, and I actually did have that story happen to me. So, you got to start with a little research to kind of show and prove to your left brain, like, this is real.
Yeah.
Um, we've been conditioned to really not trust it or focus on it. It's a shame. It's changing. But this, what's the quote? It was something like intuition is 1,000 times more um, accurate than logic, which is just incredible to me.
Yeah. It's so true though. And I love that. I think that's a really helpful practice to look back because sometimes hindsight's 2020. I have the things where I was like, "Oh, it's funny you say little Julie all the time. I'm like, "Oh, baby Brooke, you just like it was there and you knew and you kept charging forward or, you didn't listen to yourself." And sometimes, there's the good side of it too when I did, but there's also the times of you look back and it's like my heart breaks a bit. But
Yeah.
again, it is that conditioning where I was just like, well, what I feel, because again, sometimes, at least in my experience, sometimes it's like, well, is what I feel valid enough, right? Where when people are telling me these things, or there's these external factors that are making this decision this side, when I really feel this side, I'm like, well, what basis does my feeling have? Literally
Yeah.
everything. Like you're saying, like it's so strong for a reason because it's hardwired. And I love though that you said, and this was a huge part of coaching too, is looking back with curiosity and not judgment. Because while I can be kind of sad for baby Brooke, I don't judge her for that, and now I know looking back. And then it's interesting too to dig into. I wonder why. Why did I shut that down or not take that way? Or why did I choose to listen? And even maybe
Yeah.
kind of diving into that further too, of what supports were in place that I felt I could do that, or, how did it feel different from this situation? That's huge. That's a really helpful practice.
Well, and just remember, whenever we choose curiosity, which really is like compassion and kindness, I mean, that's healing.
Yeah.
Love, compassion heals. You can even heal past parts of yourself in the present, going into curiosity and compassion. It's healing.
Mhm.
It's healing to do it that way. And, trust me, when I was looking at this whole inventory of intuition, and it really it like knocked the wind out of me, because there were some big decisions I made, and I just stampeded right over my intuition, and it was strong. The thing I think also, and I'm not saying this is only for women, it could be men and others as well, but for many of us women, we are not taught to trust our feelings, to acknowledge them, to shine light on them, to love up on them, to believe them. I mean, there's so much more I could say about that. So there has definitely been a conditioning that's been happening.
Yeah.
And just, it doesn't matter what that is, because that really, to me, you can get bogged down in the anger and frustration around that and who did what and how did that happen. I think what's more important is just saying there's been a lot of factors: conditioning, not having society focus on following intuition, and just learning, evolving as a human. So you're doing it now. Be grateful and acknowledge yourself. You're doing it now. Go with curiosity and look and see. It really is powerful, and then going forward, You have a choice. We have free will. So test it, play with it, take a day and just say, you know what, I'm going to turn over my will. I'm going to really check in with what feels right in my body, in my
Mm.
intuition, in my gut, and just notice how the day goes. For me, I have a practice where if it's not a full yes, it's a no, it's a wait, don't do it yet. If, when in doubt, don't. I always, if I don't get that full aligned knowing and yes, I wait. That is very different than how I used to be, for sure.
Yeah. There's almost a confidence I think that one has to have in themselves to be able to trust yourself is the word that comes to mind to do that. So you're totally right. Practicing that. And I don't know if you've experienced this, Julie, but I would say all the time in our program, my intuition is so strong when it's a no. Like it's a no. Like when it is, it's like a stone wall. Like you're not going to break it. It's a no. And on the flip side of that, I'm trying to learn to trust my yeses, right? Or like
Mm.
this is pulling me, but I'm like, but logic and like, bleh, like it can't be, but or it's not happening right now, so it's clearly not a thing, but my heart is still that full push forward. And how do you is that just practice? How do you balance that too? Like, or do you experience that one is stronger than the other, your yeses versus your nos?
I think it's a great question. And I'm going to go back a moment because what you were saying earlier, I think plays into this. And that is,
Mhm.
having confidence, trusting yourself. It's like any relationship, right? You got to build
Mm.
in many ways. You're building a relationship with yourself and yourself and your higher self, your inner guidance. I really feel like it is very much like a relationship. So that's why the more you pay attention to it, what we focus on expands. The more you focus on your intuition, the more it's going to be sharing with you. I think in terms of the yes and the no, I get curious when I hear that. And I know for me, as somebody who is often recovering left brain, high achieving, impatient person in our 21st century of high, touch technology, and we're constantly being bombarded with, oh my gosh, I mean, notifications, ads, social media. I mean, there's just to find presence and pause, it takes
Mm.
something. It
Totally.
takes something, but I'll tell you what, you want to trust and know your intuition, you're going to have to pause. You're going to have to take a moment to breathe. Meditation has been my gateway drug. They call it, I have a shirt that says I'm highly meditated. Like
I like
it's the
that.
portal. Yeah. I actually haven't said that before the gateway drug, but it is. It's the portal. It's the portal to
Mm.
access. It's hard to hear or sense or feel things when you are on autopilot, when you're moving fast, when you are not paying attention. I have thoughts about that, but I don't want to go down a bad rabbit hole around, all the different things out there that I think keep us from being in ourselves. But we
Mm.
have choice, we have sovereignty, and anyone listening can say, I want to be able to access this amazing divine guidance that is always going to guide me to what I love and to my highest good and for those involved. I mean, anytime I've listened to my intuition, it's fantastic. It's not always easy, but the outcome, it's way better than what I would have thought. And I have so many
Yeah.
examples that are really like miraculous. Like, how did this even happen? And your inner guidance, it's a higher form of loving intelligence that's more than our brain. So I think building that relationship, it's got to be a priority. It's like anything, right? If you are dating somebody, usually in the beginning or hopefully throughout, there's a priority. You put a priority on spending time with the person you're dating, that you're seeing. It's similar. We've got to put time in dating, relating, seeing, connecting to ourselves, to our inner guidance. And so starting to notice, so you do the inventory, and then starting to notice, okay, how is it showing up for me? By doing that inventory, by the way, can be very helpful, and seeing, like for me, I realized, okay, I definitely hear something. I definitely get this like audible voice. It sounds like me kind of. I do get imagery, I get
Mhm.
visions, and I definitely get an embodiment, right? And that over time has amplified. For some, it might be audible. For others, it might be a visceral feeling. For some, it might be visual. Um, you might get this just like you might actually feel in your body, your arm twitches, you get goosebumps. I mean, we all perceive it a little different, but you've got to start knowing, how are you getting these messages? How are they coming to you? And then we want to welcome them. So the yes and the
Mhm.
no's, you asked about that. It's a great question. You know, yes, it's kind of reminds me, Brooke, your question reminds me a little bit of Marianne Williamson's quote when she talks about, what we fear the most is our light is shining bright. It's actually, people don't realize, like, and I'm getting it, I have it somewhere, but we fear our greatness. We fear our
Mhm.
brilliance. Many of us do. So it can be easy to get a no, like, okay, no, I'm not doing that, or nope, that's not for me. The yes can open a whole other cascade of feelings, like, but I really want that. It's not here. I don't know. Then money comes involved, and should I spend it? And the minute you start getting into possibility and yes, for many people, it starts to activate logic thinking,
Mm.
and you're not going to get your answer. I don't believe, and actually Einstein had this quote as well, right? Two things. He talked about, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that started it. And
Oh, I like that.
yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And the other one is that logic needs to follow the heart. It needs to follow intuition. It should be the servant to your intuition, not the other
Mm.
way around. So many of us have to work on, calming down our logical thinking mind that freaks out. Like, how are we going to do this? How am I going to pay for that? How am I going to show up like that? How am I going to
Yeah.
make that happen? Yeah, I have kids. What do you mean you want me to speak on stage? Like, I need to be here. What? That has happened before. And I'm like, okay, I know I wouldn't be asked if there wasn't a reason. Something always works out, right? And if it
Mm.
doesn't, then it's not divine timing. It's not for right now. And often it's not now and it might be later. Like you were saying, that impatience, that's where we need to trust and fall back on, okay, not now, but it doesn't mean a no. You were saying.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much because the image that I kind of have totally is like sometimes that yes feels like this solid knowing basis, right? And then the logic comes in, like you said, how it could be financial, time, resources. I'm always reading things like just release it, open up to outcomes that you're not even aware of. And I'm like, what does that mean? How can I open myself up if I can't even see what it could be or where that possibility might come from? And then it's just all of, I imagine this, like, I don't know, garbage on top of this really beautiful solid basis, just, and then the doubt is just balancing up at the top, right? Because you're just like, you can't even see the basis anymore. It's just all the doubt that's clouding.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about too, Julie, I think on your podcast, whether it's signs or intuition or times that like you've tested this and it's worked, or let's say you get a feeling and you're like, is that it? And you write it down and you keep a log, and then you can kind of look back. So not even just going back into the past, but going maybe even to like yesterday or this morning if it's something you're practicing. And I imagine that helps kind of negate the whole like, I'm throwing another piece of logical, not trash, because logic's important, but
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that quote for sure, that the heart should be the leader and the logic should follow. Because so often, I know I'm sure like a lot of other people, I don't know if it's conditioning or what, if it's my Virgo brain, but I'm like, the to do list has to come first, but it doesn't. And the good things often don't start that way.
Yeah. What helps me with that is the reminder we're human beings, to be that. What is your to be list? And the to
Mm,
being, like who you're being, is not going to be typically found in your head first. That's going to be guided by, how do I want to feel? How do I want to make an impact? How do I want to make a difference? Those types of questions, you can feel it, right? You can feel, I mean, I can feel it in my heart even as I ask it.
totally.
Here's the thing also is we're actually wired to start with our heart, with our intuition. We really are. Think about when you're little, right? And before we're really conditioned, like, no, you can't say that. Like, I remember I would tell everyone I loved them. And yeah, I just like loved people. And I was like, I love her and I love the bunny and I love that. And my parents actually really nurtured that. However, at some point I
Mm,
probably picked up on the fact that you don't say that, right? So leaning in with our heart, we you can see this with little children before they're conditioned out of it. They know, they follow their instincts. Instincts is a great word. It's connected to your intuition. I mean, animals have deep intuition. We call it instinct. So we're learning how to connect to those natural divine instincts.
Totally. And I know we're
Yeah.
coming up on our time here. So I guess one more question that's kind of burning for me is that to someone who's listening who maybe doesn't have much of a spiritual basis right now, or or they just don't know how to fit intuition into the spiritual basis they have. In your experience working with people from across the world and different backgrounds, I guess I don't even know exactly what the full question is, but like, what would you say maybe to the 20-something-year-old woman who is a good majority of our podcast listener, who's like,
Yep.
okay, this sounds nice and great, and but there's this hesitation. Is there anything that like younger Julie needs to hear, or just the women or people of today need to know about trusting this?
Yeah, first of all, awesome that you're here. And I'm psyched to
Mhm.
connect with you and that you're listening to Brooke and this podcast. And that's part of it, is just saying, I'm curious. Like, curiosity is one of the best places to start. Just getting curious. Like, I am curious to learn more. I would love to feel more confident and clear. I would love to have doubt be something of, only happen here and there. I would love to be able to trust myself. I would love to have this guidance. I don't know about it. I haven't used it. I don't know, understand it fully, but curiosity is going to be, I think, one of the most important assets that you can have, traits. Really look from curiosity. And, you know, starting with, let's see, let me do a little just research R&D, right? A little intuitive R&D, where just do a couple of times you felt your gut, you felt that instinct, you had a knowing. Look and see, when you listen to it, create a list. One side, I listened to it, I didn't. And
Mm.
just notice what happened. Let's just do a little like pro and con. I would bring in left brain, like, you could even do a little SWOT analysis or pro and con,
Yeah.
or like, seriously, like, what happened when I listened? What happened when I didn't? Just do a little list. You might get one or two on each. You will start to see a pattern. And then all we need is a little curiosity and putting where you focus your attention and intention. That's where we start to manifest. That's where things start to shift and change. So, it could be, I don't really know so much about this, but I would love to feel more confident and clear in my life. I'd love to not have doubt. I'd love to feel like I can trust myself. I'm
Mm.
telling you, this is one of the most important ways to do that. You don't have to believe in God or spiritual truths or teachings. You don't have to be into that. That may not be your thing. But I'm telling you, intuition, if you're human, if you're listening with your ears and your heart is beating, then we're in the same human team. This is scientifically, this is a gift you have. And so get curious. Look into it, Google it, research it, go look at heart intelligence, read about the science of it. I would start with curiosity. And that is, I think, the best place to start. And that itself, that can be the seed that then
Mm.
grows and blossoms and blooms. And you don't have to be all spiritual, all into the woo woo. Not at all. This is something that is, I really believe, the batteries included, that are, most of us don't even realize we're walking around with these like paid for, hyper sensitive, all knowing batteries that can give you the what to do, the roadmap, the path that can really help you in your life. It's changed my life. I've been doing a business and life 10 years, intuition powered. It's like I have an electric car. I plug her in. It's like, plug
Yes.
your intuition in, watch what happens, and just start with curiosity. I can guarantee you, even just asking that question, watch what happens.
Hmm. Yeah, that is awesome because I fully live in the kind of spiritual, woo woo world. I know you've talked about that, like woo, the wisdom of oneness, right? Instead of it being kind of a silly term, it really is something that people are trying to grasp a little more now. And I think a good majority of our listeners are there. But for anyone who, yeah, I just don't want anyone to like shut their brain off to this, right? Because like you said, it is so innate. Like when we talk about whether it's children that have it and you see them act on it, or you look back in your life and you see the way it showed up for you. That's what makes us human. Like it's so, I know animals have it too, but it is such a special part of humanness, I think, regardless of what you believe. Here on Balance and Bougie, we're just really focused on empowerment too. And I have found even though sometimes it's like a dance and it's still very much a learning process, learning to embrace the intuition is so dang empowering. Like you said, it helps cut through the doubt, it helps you trust yourself, because at the end of the day, sometimes you don't need 10 people to verify your next move. You need to check in with yourself. Whatever move that looks like, And so cultivating that relationship with yourself first and foremost is this is why I love talking to you. I always get so many good new perspectives on these important topics. So thank you.
Oh, I love it. No, I love what you said. I mean, look, you want to just shave off years of self-doubt and self-loathing and trying to go out of yourself to find the answer, and you want to
Mm.
really learn how to trust and love yourself, which by the way is good for your health. It's good for your energy. It creates longevity. And maybe at 20, I know you may not be thinking about that yet. However, I think most of us are thinking about
Oh, totally. Yeah.
longevity and energy and health and well-being. It's like this free access we all have, hands down, can change the way that you relate to yourself, the relationship with you have with yourself, and ultimately creates a deep love and respect for yourself that, you know, we can't give away what we don't have. So if you want to be
Yeah.
giving away more love, more kindness, more support, this is one of the reasons why in teaching about coaching, I go so deep into intuition, because we use it. And the more we use it for ourselves, the more that we can hold that space and help others too, that we're working with, to trust themselves. It will help you to trust and love and honor yourself, and everything shifts. You know, I look at what is I think it's called heliotropic, when the plants, you know, the idea that plants, well, it's scientific, it's not just the idea. Plants grow towards the sun,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the idea that we grow towards the light, we grow towards love. So when you tune into this part of you that is here to help you and guide you, you are growing in towards love. You're going towards that light guidance. Only good things come from that. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah. That's very beautiful. And it's true. It's true. Like it's not just a thought, right? Like it's very much rooted in truth. And I'll
Yep.
end today because again, I'm the queen of like, let's keep this going because I have so many questions. You do this on your podcast, Julie. You call them heart flares. So whoever you're interviewing, you ask them if there's anything else that they just feel called to say. So I'm going to throw the question back to you, but with the like, that's Julie's term, you guys, a little heart flare. Do you have any for our audience? Anything else you'd like them to know today?
I would just say what's coming through to me, and it's a little bit, it's on track, but what I'm hearing is something about actually. So I'm asking my intuition, and I'm asking like, what do you want to share? And what I'm hearing is, for anyone who's questioning their worthiness, and I don't know why this is coming up right now, but I'm hearing, you know, that we can often do this like crazy questioning of our worthiness. And I think,
Mm.
I know for me, definitely in my 20s and 30s, there was like this, how to prove that I'm worthy, and am I worthy enough? And what I just want to share is, we're all worthy, right? Just by being alive. You know, it's something like 1 in 14 trillion chances of being born. When you think of like the sperm, the egg that came together, and the timing that's you, it's
Yeah.
pretty unbelievable. And we can just go through life and think like, okay, I'm here. No, you're a miracle. You're worthy. And I think it's connected, because in the way that you're designed, your divine design, you have access to information and power and balance and connectiveness and support that is there. And so knowing you're worthy of spending time loving yourself, getting curious, investing in yourself, whatever that
Mhm.
is, you know, you're worthy of whatever that looks like for you. And that's something that I've been learning along the journey, is the more I know that I'm worthy, just because the more that I absolutely know that for every human being, no matter what they're doing or saying, So just to remember, you're worthy and you're worth it. You're worth spending that time like you're doing now, listening, learning, growing, becoming your best self. And don't forget, as you do that, you become even more of a magnetic light to others. So yeah, worthiness, we all have that. It's our birthright.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, especially for our audience in our mid 20s. I think that's a thread through a lot of our conversations that we have is just struggling with that feeling.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you again, Julie. You guys, I will link Julie's podcast, the USU podcast, as well as her social media, her website, any way you want to get in touch with her, because she's awesome, as you could tell. But yeah, thank you again for your time, Julie, and sharing your wisdom with us. And we will hope to have you back again some other time to talk about something else.
Oh, Breck, thank you so much. Love this conversation. And you are such a natural, you're just so natural with your questions and interviewing. And I can just feel your energy. And I want to thank everyone who's tuning in. I really hope this was impactful and at least taking away something that's going to make a real difference. That's my intention always, that there's something that really will break through and help you to love and honor and cherish and connect with yourself at a deeper level than ever before.
Absolutely.